All right, we got Clint and Brock, the two regulars who show up for some reason every week on this call. And we're joined by a special guest, longtime Argent Alpha member, Larry Pobuda. Larry, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, good to have you. So, hey, just to kick us off and give us some context, um, for anyone who hasn't met you or doesn't know you, tell us a little bit about you, your level, or what other people call as age, and what's life look for you right now? Just a quick snapshot.
Yeah, still busy working at my chosen profession, commercial real estate, here in Phoenix, Arizona. My wife and I raised our kids in Minneapolis and relocated down to Phoenix 12 years ago. So still enjoying my work, a little bit burned out by the travel, but love my continued time that I've invested and that we all have invested with Argent Alpha, and being smarter, paying more attention to my physical well-being and my, most importantly, even my mental well-being. So it's that's where I sit right now, and I would say a very, very good place.
And and one of our more fit guys, wouldn't you agree, Clinton Brock? Like
Oh, no doubt.
hit him
Yeah,
up with
I mean,
hit him up with
Larry's
some
plan is very fitting. So we all agree.
well, hit him up with a couple questions on that, just because he won't tell us unless we pull it out of him. Brock, what are you wondering about Larry? You probably know, but for people listening.
Yeah, I guess the first question, what before Argent Alpha, what was going on in your life? What finally pushed you to look for something different and actually join this group?
It's excuse me, it's interesting, Brock. When I think of that question, my mind immediately goes back to COVID.
Hmm.
And I was a regular attendee at my health club, but you recall all health clubs closed, or most of them did, certainly down here in Phoenix. And I was left to my own devices, and really seriously took up. I mean, oddly enough, I took up rope jumping and started doing it like a madman. And what I found is that it really gave me a nice high intensity workout. I used to do some running, but I had migrated away from that to preserve my knees. And rope jumping got my heart going, but minimal impact on my knees. And then I just started supplementing at home the things that I wanted, or that I wanted for at the health club that weren't no longer available. So went out and bought a rack of dumbbells, had a pull-up bar installed in my garage. And so I almost created a mini gym at my house, which allowed me a real diversity of things to do. But um, I've always been active, but I know for a fact that the missing link for me was putting together all these elements and recognizing the importance of mindset,
Mm.
recognizing the importance of hydration, of sleep, and of nutrition. I felt like I was doing the fitness thing pretty well, but in many ways at the expense of all those other elements. I wasn't paying attention to those other elements. And so I was frequently dehydrated. I was frequently sleep deprived. I would binge eat. I wouldn't really read labels. And I just thought that the fitness would cover all of those mistakes I was making. And so it wasn't until I got involved in Argent Alpha that I saw the composite, that I saw the full picture and how all these things needed to work together. And that's also when I started to notice real differences in my body. When I would look at myself in the mirror and I'd say, Jesus, I mean, you're looking better than what I'm used to seeing in the mirror. And it's really the bringing together of all the elements that's most materially different from me since joining Argent Alpha.
Do you, yeah, I could totally in my mind picture what you're talking about on just like I'm a fitness junkie. I'd be able to do all this stuff. You then be able to do it at home and then take it on the road or travel or whatever. You've done a really good job there. But as you like put a little bit more emphasis on some of those other things, hydration and nutrition and mindset, are there any things that stick out to you as just like, oh my God, this is when it clicked in this aspect of it?
Uh, yeah, there's so many moments, and I feel like the uh, some of the best parts of Argent Alpha have been simply the learning. And when I say learning, frequently when we get to age 60 or 65, in my case, people really turn the key off to new learning. They either feel they've achieved a sense of mastery, or they're no longer interested, or again, their world begins to shrink a little bit. It was just the opposite with me with Argent Alpha, with all the readings that we were doing, with Outlive, with Mark Hyman and his book, with Atomic Habits. I mean, so many books stand out that were really transformative for me when I really immersed myself in those readings. And I can honestly say that it's, in addition to the readings, it's been mostly the interface with the members of the Argent Alpha community that I've taken snippets. And I mean, looking at Clint Murray, I feel like I am a prolific label reader now when I'm in the grocery store. And I recognize what added sugars mean. Before I didn't really understand that. I didn't focus on it in any way. That's just one example, but the hydration as well. Ironically enough, when I moved to Phoenix, I had 3 really bad bouts of kidney stones. And when I was in at Mayo Clinic and had to have these things surgically removed at one point, the guy said, "Do you realize how important hydration is in Phoenix, where it is so dry? And if you're not continually replenishing it, it was really shortly thereafter that I got involved in Argent Alpha, and the hydration has been, just something now that is just central to every day that I live. So I think it's the learning, and I can look at every element, whether it's fitness or nutrition or sleep, all of these things. I'm in a very different place today with the collective learning that I've really gleaned over the last 3 years of participation with the group.
That's awesome. I have so many follow-up questions I want to ask, but I'm going to let them go. One thing I just love that you said, Larry, that this is embodied by this group, and that Jag, you lead from the front on this big time, is just like when you get to that 50s, 60s or higher, it's like you turn the key off on your learning, and honestly, you're turning the key off on your mindset and like being open-minded and trying new things. And you do such a wonderful job with that, Larry. And it's I love hearing the examples of you talking through that.
Thank you. And thanks to all of you, because you all have been the drivers in this.
Yeah, you know what? I got a few things. Because I think you and I, Larry, we came in right about the same time. I don't remember exactly, but I just always remember you being there. And I mean, right when I saw you and met you, of course, I mean, your fitness stands out. And so I guess one of the questions I'm going to skip down because so many of them were answered in that first in your first with Brock. But what are some of the biggest lessons you've taken away? Not just health and fitness, but discipline, identity, and how you live your life. What are some of the biggest lessons you've seen?
And you're talking broadly, not only fitness, but everything.
Yeah, broadly, just within all the things that here in Argent Alpha. Yeah.
Gosh, I mean, so many things jump out at me. Um, I, um, I love the reflection when I think of how what Argent Alpha represents because it's a composite of nothing, or it's nothing that you can buy, it's nothing that you can necessarily wear, or it is, as people say, it's earned. It is really the reflection of all of these inputs of hard work. It's discipline. It's day in and day out. And I think the one thing that happened with me somewhere in my Argent Alpha journey, and I don't know exactly where, for a while it felt like work, like I was going uphill. I was always going uphill and learning and pushing and incorporating this. And now I got to incorporate, now we've got burpees, or now we've got pull-ups, or now we've got something else. And it felt like a lot, and it had a heaviness to it at times. There was a point though, and I never knew when. I can't again describe when I hit the point, and I certainly didn't know that I was about to crest the mountain or crest the hill. But all those things then almost became pain-free or weren't so problematic. It was a level of confidence, of understanding that with the work, I was going to master this next thing that might be unfamiliar to me. But I look now and I say, these things are such natural parts of my everyday being. I wake up, I do think about my day. I think of, I don't get on my phone. I do drink the 12 to 15 ounces of water first thing. These are just things that are now part of my daily life that feel really, really good. I don't feel like I pay any price for being healthy or being part of the Argent Alpha community. It's not like I'm depriving myself or somehow feeling less than, not able to eat out or not able to spend fun time with friends. These are choices that I've made where I know I'm healthier, I'm happier, And I think for people who might be feeling that continued push and struggle, you're going to crest the mountain, you're going to crest that hill, and pretty soon it becomes a natural part of what it is you do in a super healthy and fun, rewarding way.
Man,
That's
what Larry just said to me is like that's the identity shift. That's what we talk about. Is you don't know it till you get it, right? I mean, it's like the mojo. You didn't know you lost it till you got it back, and then you realize it. I mean, you really nailed that answer, Larry. And I think when guys get stuck in the journey, the first thing I always tell them is go back and review your future self, make it more vivid, more descriptive, make it so it's pulling you forward, it's magnetic. Because if it's not that way, your old life's going to feel more comfortable. There's this gravitational pull that keeps you in that orbit of your current self. And I mean, it's like you created exit velocity. You know, that's I like that planetary thing because it's like it just holds you there so hard. And Larry's one of the, you know, I'd say in the 20% that comes in, who you were doing pretty well, Larry. Like you said, I mean, physically, just visually, you were fit, good body fat percent, strong. You just went next level. And I think there's other guys who have a different journey in front of them, but the same principles apply.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly right. I did come in my first. I still have my first in body, and it was 13.8% on the body fat, but it was really I think the body composition, the strength. I'd like to look back on that one. You know, in addition to, and we talked a lot about this, in addition to the percent body fat, I really love measuring, taking my skeletal muscle mass, and then dividing it into my total body weight and striving for 51, 52% all the time. And that becomes my measure stick even more because especially as you age, maintaining that muscle mass and not seeing it diminish is critically important in my mind, in how I feel, how I'm able to live every day. So without question, I mean, um, this 3 years, the last 3 years have been the healthiest 3 years of my life. And I don't know that there's many 65-year-olds who can really say that.
That is awesome.
yeah.
That feels really good. And, you know, Jag, I joked with you. I told you every November I go into Mayo Clinic for my executive physical, and they always give you a really comprehensive write-up. And my doctors comment on the fact that kind of my blood work and the way I present is different than typical 65-year-old. My doctor started the write-up by saying, Lawrence Pobuda presents as a robust 65-year-old. And I thought, well, that's a funny way of describing it, robust 65-year-old. They didn't want to say maybe fit or healthy or other terms, but robust. And I thought, I'll take 65, I'll take robust.
Hey, before I forget, we got to do this quick exercise. If Larry Pobuda had a baseball card and we're looking at the back, because again, we all like stats, right? So used to be 13.8. Larry, give us some of your baseball card, back of the card stats, body fat, pull-ups, jump rope, whatever comes to your mind as far as stats. And again, it's not bragging if it's true. So take off the humble hat and just let her go.
Look, I got into a little contest with a guy in my office who's also into fitness, and we each wanted to drive our percent body fat below 10. And I did it one time, and I got one in body to prove it that I was at 9, just a 9 flat. I didn't hold that, and I'm not sure that I loved 9. I didn't feel necessarily optimal at that level. So I'm right now I'm at 12 on my last one that I did. I'm generally right at 11, 12, 12 and a half, somewhere in that range, on a pretty regular basis. As far as fitness, I mean, it's funny, Jag, and this is absolutely a tribute to Argent Alpha. Pull-ups scared the shit out of me when I started this journey. I mean, I might be able to do one or something. And I remember the first Argent Alpha live at Brock's gym. And, he had all those pull-up bars sprung together, and I knew we were going to be hanging off of those things. I started working the pull-ups, and pretty soon, for whatever reason, I could feel my back getting stronger. I could feel my form getting better. And pull-ups have become just an absolute regular part of my weekly workout. And one of the workouts that I like to do, because I still do the rope jumping, I'll go into my club for an hour and 15 minutes on the weekend. And what I'll do is I'll do 10 sets. I'll do 200 jumps of the rope. I go right to the pull-up bar and I'll do 6 to 8 pull-ups. Then I do 10 goblet squats. And then I do that for 10 sets. And so I get 2,000 jumps in. I get 60 to 80 pull-ups in. And then I get generally 100 goblet squats. And it's just a intense workout that works for me. And again, I've told you guys this in the past. There's nothing like a pull up to garner the attention of a 25-year-old when they look at you and they say, "But you're kind of an old dude." I mean, what they can't quite uh, piece it together when they see my old face and my ability to do a pull up. And so, in that sense, it's oddly gratifying too.
Hey, I'll come out and say it. You guys can't see Larry below the neck, but he's freaking jacked. Just take my word for it. Larry is jacked. Looks badass. Big old veins in his arms and everything. So
Thank you.
Until it was coaxed out of you, Larry, and you talked about your baseball card stats and your body fat percentage. Like I love how you shaped up what we talk about in identity and future self, and that is something that you could just hear the passion, and that you're living this out. As I just turned 40. Clint's what, 42.
Yeah.
And so, if you were to give guys in their 40s or early 50s, if you're to give them something that they should be focusing on, or something that, hey, let's not push us out another year, what would you say?
Well, I would also give you both a lot of grace. People who are 40 and 42 are dealing with things that I'm not dealing with at age 65. You have complexities. When I reflect back to age 40 or 42, I was in the throes of raising our kids with my wife. There were birthday parties, there were late nights, there were pizza dinners, there were, things at the house that we were eating that we wouldn't eat today. I think it's much, much more challenging to stay focused on fitness when you're in your 40s, or when you're in those periods of life when it is far more about other people than it is about you. And so I would say to people in their 40s, and when you're at different points, to give yourself grace and recognize that it's much more a marathon, and be in the position at age 60 to be able to really sink your teeth into you. And it was when I became an empty nester that, I really got on this schedule, because you guys know I'm an early riser. I wake up every day at 3:20. I don't set an alarm. That's just when my body wakes up. I'm at my health club at 4. I wasn't always able to maintain that schedule when we had kids at home and I was up late, and I would never wake up at that hour with the kids. But now that I control my own schedule, waking up at that time is my choice. I go to bed really early. So anyone who thinks I wake up early, you also need to hear the other side of that equation. I'm sleeping by 7:30, so it's not like I'm staying up till 10 and then waking up at 3:20. I'm getting plenty of sleep, just on an odd schedule. And so I would say to guys who are 40, um, keep uh, keep on with the inputs, but recognize that they're going to be maybe slightly more irregular and more interrupted by things that happen at that point in your life. And that's the beauty of leveling up, as Clint would say, and it's the beauty of kind of controlling your own schedule once you get to my age.
Well, that is so awesome. That's such good advice, Larry. And you're describing what my life is like, and so I could you're spot on. You obviously lived it. I think what I heard you say more than anything is not necessarily pushing the envelope as far as like all of these new things, but you could just as easily or go much further backwards too if you're not at least maintaining that we talk about your default standards, or the minimum viable exercise, nutrition, and just more, not necessarily on the defense, but it's not when some of the craziness of life kind of goes away, you'll have time to really focus in on you if you haven't went too far backwards.
I think that's right, and I also think we talk a lot about writing our own eulogy and what is it that we want to talk about, not our resume, but our eulogy. And one of the things that would be really important to me is being a good dad, being a good spouse, and all those inputs that are required to do both. Those things don't happen on their own. Just because you get married or just because you have a kid doesn't mean you become a good spouse or a good father. And so those things require a lot of work. And at that point, when I was in my 40s, making sure that I was committed to the successful launch of my kids, and my wife and I both really felt this, was our top priority. So, you know what, if I meant I was up until 11 o'clock, eating birthday cake and ice cream and all that kind of stuff, that's what I was doing. I didn't forego those things, and I'm grateful that I didn't. I've got two healthy, productive kids who are now adults, of course, and now it feels a little bit like me time in a healthy way. I mean, in being able to, you're never not a dad, you're never not a spouse, but I have time to focus on things that, in my mind, make me an even better father, an even better spouse through all the, through the nutrition, through the fitness, through the sleep, and most importantly, the mindset.
Hey, just a real quick story. I feel that, one of the great things about Argent Alpha is we make connections, and I feel a special kinship with Larry because we've had some great conversations and connected quite a bit. But we do our live events, and our live events are, they're always a challenge, and I'm always up for it and things like that. But Argent Alpha Live 2, we're in the pool and we're swimming, and Brock says he doesn't know how to swim, and he's freaking dragging the 75-pound ball across the bottom, and Jag is too. But my kinship with Larry is, I remember both of us looking over because I'm struggling in the pool, guys. Like, it's cold, I'm cramping up, I'm about ready to drown. I look over and me and Larry just kind of like, this was not good. Like it was like we suffered together, and so I feel a special kinship in that way too. And that's one of the great things about this.
I absolutely hated that, Clint. But Jag, I know you're proud of that event, and you should be proud of it. You're lucky you didn't have to call 911 for me. I mean,
I was right there with
not
you.
my finest hour.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of it. I mean, I think testing and the willingness to jump in, and I mean, you know what? I'll take the barefoot walk in the desert over the pool any day of the week. The pool pushed me in every way.
I feel you. Me too, Larry. We're in the same there. So.
Hey Larry, I'm curious now. So you're level 65 and you just hit it recently. What are you forecasting for the next 5 years in any area? I'm just curious, like, because I think we've talked a lot about this. Like, we learn a lot from others in front of us. You, Judge, Brian Lennon. Judge has said that from a long time. He wants somebody to chase that's ahead of him in the journey. Well, now he's got Brian Lennon. Brian's 5 years older. What do you see your next 5 years looking like?
So I tried something this past summer that if you'd asked me 2 years ago, I would have said I would never do it. And I went by myself over to Europe for a 9-day hike around the base of Mont Blanc. I would consider myself an adequate hiker, but I kind of put myself through a training program at my gym. I would jump on the stair climber for an hour and a half with a 22-pound pack, and I would work that before I went over to Europe. And I there were a couple of things that scared me about it. Number one, I had never really strung fitness together in 9 consecutive days like that, where there was going to be a challenge and you had to go to sleep and wake up and do it the next day again for 9 days in a row. But also I was going by myself. Wasn't going with my wife. I wasn't going with any friends. I was going over there, and I was gonna, these guides kind of point you in the right direction in the morning, and then they meet up with you in the next village that evening. And it was a great, number one, first and foremost, it was all about mindset, and that's where it started, and that's where it really ended for me. I had tons of time by myself thinking, contemplating, feeling sorry for myself at different moments when I was cramping up or feeling like I was never going to get to the top of the mountain. And yet I was exhilarated at the same time. And I did feel the strength of everything that we focus on in Argent Alpha, in whether it was breathing, whether it was making sure that I was hydrating, certainly what I was eating that night. Then once I was back in the village or the next village. So incorporating all of those things was critically important. And I think I think through that experience, I have found that I love these hiking adventures. Now, I told Jag when we met for lunch last week, I'm not I'm not like Judge. I'm not gonna sleep in the woods and spear fish and sleep with bears. I'm not gonna do that. I've got to have a comfortable mattress, and I'm not willing to do that. So I was staying in hotels, but the days were grueling at times, and they were fantastic. And so one of the takeaways for me when I look forward to the next 5 years is I'm going to continue these hiking outings, and I'm going to keep doing it by myself. So I'm planning on doing the Dolomites in Italy, and that's a 5 day hike, and just another opportunity to explore the beauty of our world. And I think that hiking, Jag, and I think I'd sent you the video that I had created of the hike. I created a video, actually. It's a 6 minute video of me kind of, I was through the hike, I would take selfie videos and I'd send them to my family so they knew that I was still living and that I was enjoying myself. And I put these things together with photos and some music. And part of the things that I really felt through that hike were many of or much of the things that Arthur Brooks describes in From Strength to Strength, which of course is the January book that you all are reading and that I read a while back. I felt this whole crystallization phase and kind of moving into this next phase and chapter of my life and understanding the relevance, deeper meaning of life as I hiked and as I had time to contemplate. Those things really became apparent when I was hiking. So for the next 5 years, and hopefully even longer, Jag, I hope that becomes part of an annual or every other year type adventure for me that I can really tie into and see a different part of the world, meet new people, and continue to challenge myself.
Mm,
That's awesome. You know, it's
that's
what I
amazing.
heard you say is you kind of created a Masogi and a solo retreat and put them together.
Mhm.
And that's pretty cool. I mean, I love how you say that too. Like 9 days, do it, wake up and do it all over again. Just the mental challenge of that. And I know you're like me. Your knee isn't or knees aren't exactly loving probably 9 days of it, but you conditioned yourself. An hour and a half on a stair climber with a 20-pound pack.
That's what I was doing, and it also caused me to think through. They sent a very good list of how to be prepared, what kind of hiking shoes, and all that kind of stuff, and so I felt like I was well prepared on that front. But it was a great experience, and I reflect back on it. One of the things too, when I think of Craig Johnson and what was it that he did in Utah that scared the hell out of me when I was
Angel's Landing.
Angel's Landing. I mean, that's a real hike. I mean, what I did was Sound of Music type hiking. He did cliff diving. I mean, he was doing stuff that was extraordinary. And I, there was one moment that I did have on my hike, and it was at the end of day one. And we were approaching this place where it was clear that we were kind of didn't have any place to go but for straight ahead, where there were a series of three ladders, and you were kind of on the edge of the mountain. And I can send you the video, you can see the ladders, but you had to climb up 17 steps and then kind of shimmy to the left, grab hold of another ladder and go up another 12. And I was with some other folks, some Australian hikers at that point. They were like, well, give us your phone, we'll videotape this. And I was like, no effing way. I mean, I just need to focus on this and just get up there. And that again was one. I don't love open air heights. I don't like feeling like one misstep and I'm falling to my death. And that had elements of that, and feeling like I kind of conquered that fear, and that I was able to do that. I still look back on it and I'm like, how did I do that? I mean, I did it. I got there and I shimmied up there and I got it done. I wasn't happy about it, but I got it done. And I'm proud of myself at age 65 for tackling the ladders, as they're called, out at Mont Blanc.
Hey,
That
you
sounds
guys
amazing.
got like 5 more minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. One thing, Larry, you're truly in. I mean, you're living your story. You're the hero of your story. But I think within Argent Alpha, you're more of a guide to us. Like, I mean, we always talk about be chasing taillights. I mean, I see Larry Pobuda's taillights. What when you think of yourself as a guide? and a community. Talk just a little bit about the value of a community. I mean, I heard you just talk about learning. You just gave us a great example that I'm sure somebody listening to this is going to go, I got to check out the Mont Blanc hike thing, because I'd never heard of that. I think that sounds really interesting. But talk a little bit more about maybe the guide role and how important that is it's not always just about what you can get out of the experience, it's what you can give to others. And that's how you also get by giving. Because we talked about this a little bit last week.
Yeah, although, again, I don't know that that's necessarily been one of my strengths in Argent Alpha in, being as strong a guide as what I potentially could be. There's a couple of thoughts that I do have on that. The group that I joined with, to me, became an invaluable peer group. And I would really, the comment I would make to people who are within their first 6 months of having joined Argent Alpha is lean into each other. You will be able to celebrate each other's successes, understand each other's failures, pick each other up, redirect, learn. That group, it's almost like a cohort when you're in school and you kind of carry them with you all 4 years of college. This is going to be your peer group, and don't let go of those people. In my mind, those are the most important people in the Argent Alpha journey, your cohort. And I reflect back on my cohort, and I stay in touch with a lot of those folks, and I reflect back on their pathways forward with Argent Alpha as well. As far as a guide, I think there's so much. And again, I need to think about this because I love one-on-one mentoring, but I also at the same time don't feel like I am necessarily the answer man. I don't think anyone necessarily is. And so I tend to be more quiet. I don't tend to say that, well, listen up, fellas, let me tell you what I've done that's worked so well. I think it's such an individual journey that people have to go on. And if people join Argent Alpha thinking that, again, that something is going to be solved in 6 months or 9 months, I think it's the wrong thought. I think you've got to go into it and let it. It's like a baton handoff in a relay race. You just got to smoothly take the baton and continue on to the next leg of the journey. And so, I don't have answers. There's no magic pill that I've taken, nor do I feel like I'm the master of something. I'm the master of what's been important to me. And each person, each member of Argent Alpha, I think, has a path and that future self, as we always talk about. Stay focused on that and continue to allow key messages through the readings, through the stories, through your peer group, and through guides, for sure. And I'm always happy to talk to people and share stories or share my perspective, or when I felt fatigued by the program. But it's the fact that people have taken the step to join. In many ways, I think is the toughest part. It's placing that call and saying, I'm looking forward to this, or I want to sink my teeth into it. But like anything, you've got to be open to the learning. And if you sink your heart into it, it has tremendous rewards.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, hey, let's do one more last one. Question each real quick. Brock, anything? Clint, anything?
I have a comment real quick, and then Brock, you go. Just on what you just said, Larry. The comment is, as far as a guide, like obviously you don't know, how much of a guide you are, or it doesn't sound like it, but your actions speak louder than any words could. So just looking at Larry and what Larry does speaks way more than any words would. And I mean, you're wearing your results. Like, look at you at 65, like your actions, you're wearing them, and there's no mistaking them. So you're an incredible guide. So
Well, thank you, Clint. It was fun. You guys know I travel a lot, and I just on my last flight, as a matter of fact, I got on the plane and I was sitting down. This guy seated right across the aisle from me. He said, "Hey, what are you training for?" And I said, "Well, I'm into fitness." And he said, "Well, I'm just telling you, what you're doing is really working." And this was a guy kind of my age. And, I'm just in business clothes, casual clothes. And I wasn't like I was in some tank top and, short shorts or something. I was just in business clothes. And so when you talk about wearing it, a lot of times you don't realize you're wearing it. But it feels good to be healthy, most importantly. And then when people do notice or make a comment, that's kind of the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
You truly embody leading from the front, Larry. It's cool. The amount of wisdom you have here. You are a guide that you just dripped in this, and two things just stick out that I see over and over again. Not even relevant to any specific age, but I think anyone listening to this could pull from what you said and before, and like, going through when you're having kids or with a spouse or whatever, to not go backwards, and just continue to level up there, like condense down your expectations is the other piece of this. It's just like not um not having those arbitrary points in time, like, hey, I got 6 months to get this thing figured out. And it's like, why 6 months? Longevity is like it's for the rest of your life. You want to continue to do it at as high of a level as you possibly can. So like, it's putting all of your eggs in one basket and saying, I got to figure this out in 6 months. Otherwise, what? I'm done. I'm just gonna go sit on the couch. Like that. You do such a good job of just like wrapping that piece up there. So you definitely lead from the front, and the amount of wisdom I pulled from this is great and good to hear.
Well, I mean, thanks to all three of you, because I think the thing that I have is I have my journey through Argent Alpha as I described, with my cohort. You guys have now touched, how many? 10 different cohorts of people going through Argent Alpha over the years. And so you guys continue to be the guide to these 10 different cohorts that are all traveling this path at very different places. And I think that's part of the challenge that you all have as leaders and guides to the entirety of the Argent Alpha community. And so kudos to you three for being able to make it meaningful for people like me who are 3 years in, as well as those who are 3 months in and at very different points. This is a program that is customized to different levels. I mean, what's good at 3 months is not necessarily good at 3 years, and what's good at 3 years isn't necessarily good at 3 months. But that's the art of what you all are creating, is this program that works throughout the continuum.
Yeah, I think I'd coin that patient urgency. It's like there is an urgency. That doesn't mean we're in a rush, but you have to have some patience, and kind of embedded in that is consistency, and that goes against everything in society. Quick fix, hacks, shortcuts, short attention spans, and that's why the guys who stick with it, they get sustainable results. I mean, your identity's fixed now in its future self. I mean, now you're probably working on the next version of it, which you talked about in those next 5 years. Well, hey, last question. Clint had this one. For our next guest, it might be, I'm probably going to text a Judge right after this and see if he'll do it. I'm guessing he will. But what would be your question for the next Argent Alpha member who's a guest on here, whether it's Judge or somebody else? Anything come to mind that you'd pose to them? Something tougher than what we softballed you today?
Gosh, I think with Judge, and I'm thinking specifically of Judge because he is, I think of him as one of my cohorts. And of course, when we were in Minneapolis for the can't remember. He and I stayed at the same hotel in Edina, and I, having lived in Minneapolis, I carted him around and drove through neighborhoods and took him to my favorite spots and that kind of thing. I guess it was the very first one when we were at your gym, Brock, and I mean, I have tremendous admiration for Judge physically, but I think even more kind of in the depth of his mindset and his spirit. He is. I think that's his real strength. Physically, he's of course a specimen, but his mind is unbelievably strong. And so with Judge, I mean, one of the questions I think where you could go really deep is in his mindset, which guides him. And again, I think to what he did for his, when he headed into that back country, into the woods, and he was literally spearing fish for dinner. That's when I starve. And so I give him, I have such admiration for that. Is a complete immersion into everything Argent Alpha that taxes every element of this program and of good health.
That's great.
So I'm not sure I came up with a general question, but one specific for Judge, I think it'd be fascinating because he could talk for hours on And I think of him a little bit like a Renaissance man. I mean, in so many things, when you go to his house and you see the pieces of art that he's created, his professional work, his spiritual, I mean, everything, and certainly all of his physical accomplishments and running a marathon and everything else. So he's like a Renaissance man.
Yeah, one of many. You're one of them too. It's like again, we just get inspiration from guys further ahead in the journey. So, well, thanks for that. That was our first time trying that question out. I think you did a great job. Thanks for joining us, Larry. This is great. Really
Yeah,
appreciate
it's
it.
always great to spend time with you guys, and thank you all for everything you've done for a big community, me specifically. And again, there's not a day goes by that I don't wake up thinking about Argent Alpha, and in a really good way with my hydration and going to sleep with some deep Wim Hof breathing. That the next thing I know, it's the following morning, and I've had a great night's sleep. So it's fantastic.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thanks,
All right,
Larry.
guys.
Yeah.
Thanks, you
Good to
guys.
see you, Larry.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks.